Hey, everybody, it's Ken Himmler, and I wanted to cover something with you that affects not only individuals that are filing personal tax returns, but also businesses filing business tax returns. Just recently, the IRS released the massive data breach, meaning somebody cyber attacked them and grabbed everything from social security numbers to addresses to everything to impersonate you. If you've never been through an IRS identity theft issue, it is very expensive. Now, about 3 years ago, when we were running into some major issues with the IRS and the incorrect, probably 90% of all the IRS notices that were being sent out, and it wasn't our fault because the IRS is just in such a disarray. We partnered with I'm not going to call them an insurance company, but it's a service that you pay for. And what they do is they cover data breach, identity theft problems with the IRS. They also cover up to $1 million in audit protection. And I will tell you that after the $80 billion that this last administration pumped into the IRS, now technically only 40 billion of it has made it into the IRS's coffers. The amount of audits that we have seen go up in the last 3 years, and what I was hoping for, and I want to make a correction. A couple years ago, when I said the upside of the 80 billion that will be pumped into the IRS is I was hoping that the number of false IRS statements and letters that were going out would be reduced. The funny part was not so funny is when people would get these IRS notices, they would call us saying, "Hey, you guys made a mistake." I had to try to go through this little, explanation that, listen, the IRS, their computer systems are literally from the 1990s. 90% of the IRS notices are incorrect. They're either false, they haven't booked a payment, they booked a payment to the wrong year, they haven't recorded things correctly. It's the IRS. And listen, I feel bad for those people that work for them because they're having to deal with all of this inefficiency of operations, but they're false. And I made a statement about 3 years ago when the administration said they're going to get $80 billion into the IRS. And I said, well, the downside is that you can expect a huge increase in audits because they're going to have a lot more people to audit. I said, but the upside is that if we're dealing with this for you, then hopefully the number of hours that it takes us, billable hours, to fix the IRS's mistakes will go down or away. I was also made a statement that I would hope that the IRS letters would also either be reduced. They're not. They're actually increased, which is very odd that they have all this money to improve computer systems, added people in. But I really called that incorrectly. I really thought that those notices would go down, but they have not. So I will again tell you how valid and how important it is that if we're doing your tax returns, add on the audit protection and the ID protection. It's an added cost, but if you get audited, it's covering you up to $1 million in representation. If you have identity theft, it will cover you because that in itself, when we've had clients come to us from outside, we didn't do their tax returns and they got their identity theft stolen. When we're billing hours to deal with the IRS and unwind every single thing that has been scammed or hacked from you, the least cost has been $10,000 and the most was almost $40,000. So for whatever they're charging, $100, $200 a year, again, I want to re-emphasize or emphasize strongly that if we're doing your tax returns, add it on. If we're not doing your tax returns, ask your tax preparer or your CPA if they have that kind of insurance. Again, it's not technically insurance, but that kind of coverage that they can add on. If they don't, you should probably find a different tax preparer because they're distancing themselves from the reality of the risks of what's happening with the IRS right now. All right, Ken Himmler signing out. Please protect yourself with this.